Hi, I'm SableCaught and welcome to my interview with Patrick Ness. Patrick, thank you for joining me.
I called you Stevie.
Yes, that's my name.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
That's allowed.
Hello.
That is my name.
Thank you. I feel welcome now.
So how do you feel having finally finished the rest of this? Let's just live here?
I'm delighted. Although the writing process on this one was... this and The Knife and Never Letting Go were the two that really flowed out, and I wish that happened all the time, and it so totally doesn't. But
you can't capture it, bottle that feeling.
No, if you could, you'd make zillions. But yeah, so it's always that moment where you hold the book that feels kind of still feels the...
Where you
like,
see
wow,
your name
I
in
did
print.
it. Not that, but just that it's a real physical object, that it's a real thing that you can hold.
You can't just print it out of your printer and like sew it together.
That's slightly different. It's a nicely designed cover and nicely collated. I suppose you could theoretically.
So you have an interesting concept for this one where all your chapters are introduced as if it's a different story. You've got a different story in the background.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
Well, I wanted it... I mean, there's so many books in YA are about the chosen one, which is, as it should be, because there's a reason for that. There's when you become a teenager, it's the first time you're saying, I am different from what I've been brought up. I'm stepping away from my family to become an individual, and that's absolutely necessary. It has to happen, but it's it's a violent process. It's violent to your personality. It's violent to your emotions. It's stepping away for the first time, and it's very brave, and it makes you feel very lonely. And the chosen one narrative gives you an explanation. It says there's a reason you feel this way. Because you're a wizard, or because you're going to fight the Hunger Games, and it's okay. You can grasp your power, and you'll be all right. And it's a very strong narrative, and I don't have much of a problem with it. But I did begin to wonder, what about the ones who don't even feel like that kid, and because I didn't. I would have just assumed I was at the back of the class doing my algebra, thinking, well, they're the chosen ones. So I wanted to tell a ostensibly typical YA story across the top of the chapter headings and have some fun, loving fun, but that the real story was about the kids who live in a town that's a lot like a YA novel, but who just want to graduate, and who just want to go to college, and who just want to have a decent night out with their friends without being attacked by vampires or zombies or something. So that's where it came from. It's about the other ones. Would
you say your indie kid experiences are lovingly inspired by other YA novels out there?
Nothing directly, but I mean, I love YA, and but I also love that YA has grown wide and diverse and robust enough is the word I want. Robust enough that there's so much of it, and it encompasses everything. It encompasses all levels of quality, for lack of a better word. Pulp to literary. I have no snobbery about either. But because of that, it has developed certain cliches is a bit strong, but you know what I mean. Certain
Tropes
things.
Is the genre.
I hate the word trope. I hate the word trope, but
it does feel very American.
Familiarity that I've seen this before, and that I think teenage readers are such smart readers. I think they know exactly what I'm talking about, and to have some loving fun with that, and also just to have some loving fun with. It must be so difficult to actually be Katniss. Great to read about, you feel you're with the story and it's great, but to actually be her would be so difficult. So to also try to portray that if you are the chosen one, boy, it really must stink if you're actually that person. So
and having characters that are desperately trying to avoid it at any cost.
And if you are stuck with it, you're going, why do we always have to do this? And that's one of my favorite moments in the book, when the indie kids go, I don't know why it's always us. That's really funny to me.
Do you think if your book wasn't YA, it would be under metafiction or magical realism?
I always say the genre is helpful for selling a book, but it's I don't find it helpful for writing a book. I always think my job is just to... Even a putatively realistic book is completely made up. It does not exist. It is only words, and so the same effort of creation goes into a quote-unquote realistic book as it does into a fantastical book. And so I think it's an unfair distinction. Not that you're making it, I'm making it. I'm setting this up to blame you for making it. So so I think if you can do anything in a book, my job for any particular book, any one book, is to just make a world where you believe that this story could truly take place, and that's it. And that's as far as my thinking goes. And I'm happy to take any elements of genre that serve the story, because I'm not a snob about genre. I don't look down on it. I think it has wonderful possibilities as as tools, as history, as things to build on. But when I'm telling a story, all I think about is, what does the story need? And so I don't think about stuff like that. But I also don't mind books that are playful, and don't mind books that have fantastical elements, because every book is fantastical, every single one. So I just pretend that there is no such distinction.
Okay, in The Rest of Us Just Live Here, you've got a lot of characters that deal with health and mental health in different ways. So you've got Alzheimer's with the grandmother, you've got eating disorders, you've got possibly OCD, although you never refer to it by those labels. Did you find it kind of difficult to kind of navigate those and to do it respectfully?
Respectfully is a slightly dangerous word, I think, because if you have to respect the material, but not in a. You have to respect it by treating it truthfully, and that to me is the kind of respect you need. I think if you can't be careful. I suppose that's what I mean. Careful is dangerous. You don't want to read a careful book, but respectfully getting the truth of it, yeah. But so no, my goal is never ever. I'm never thinking. I don't know. I'm always just thinking what's true, And my grandma had Alzheimer's, and that's those scenes, which they're a small part of the book, but they're important in a way. Their way. That started just because I got so angry at what Mikey calls kooky Alzheimer's, where grandma's just a little bit crazy, and she says just smart things at the right moment. Well, that's not what Alzheimer's is like. And so I just wanted to show it truthfully, because it made me angry when I saw the falseness of it, because there's still tenderness for her, but her Alzheimer's is very severe, and there's loss there, and there's real pain there, and that's what I wanted to see the truth of. And for Mikey and his sister, these are not uncommon things at all. In fact, I think they're more common than not. Different types of anxiety disorder. So again, I just wanted to treat them with truth and tenderness, but also not to. It's not an issue book. I don't. I don't like that kind of label either, because it has to be a story first. But having said that, if I'm going to write about it, it needs to be truthful and feel true. And so that's true is where I go to. Always true, rather than respectful. True, and because true can cut, true can hurt.
Well, how did you find kind of marrying those with the fantastical elements of your book? For instance, the idea that maybe these things could be magically cured.
Totally fine. Totally fine with it. It was that there's it's a thought experiment. If you could be cured, would you? And I don't want to give anything away much, but it's for Mikey that the asking is important, and I love the decision that Mikey makes, and I love that he makes it in the way he makes it, and that felt really, really true, because he's after something else. He says, in one point of the book, he says, even among my friends, I always feel like the least needed, the one that everybody could do without. And that, to me, is the center of the book. And that feeling feels so true and so painful that everything comes from that. Everything erupts from that. I'm not starting with an issue. I'm starting with a feeling that feels painful and true to me. And everything grows from there.
Characters who just happen to have these things as they go through their stories.
Well, there's a lot of arguing these days about I know exactly where you come from, and I know exactly what you mean, but I've seen arguments about the phrase "just happens," and I hate everybody to argue about anything these days. But I suppose I understand that a little, because you wouldn't want to diminish it either. So I guess it's just. I'll go back to the truth thing. Somebody can have something severe that they deal with every day, and it still isn't their whole world. And I think that's what. It's not that they just happen to have it. It's that they're not just that. It's not the only thing they are, and that's what you want for any character in any situation. You want them to be more than one thing. So I suppose it's treating it that way. They are not just a diagnosis, which is an important thing to know. Yeah.
To make it a bit lighter, do you think Dylans and Finns everywhere are going to be cursing your name?
I don't think there are any real Dylans or Finns. I think it's we all know the difference between fiction and reality, and I think we can see the reality in Mikey and the fiction in Kerouac's and Satchel's, and that's so affectionately done. I just these are from books I love, and I think people will understand. I think teenagers are really, really clever, smart readers, wide readers, and I think they know exactly what I'm going to be talking about.
Are people actually called Satchel?
There's a famous baseball pitcher, a man called Satchel Paige, or was he a jazz trumpeter? Oh my God, I don't actually know. Oh my God, I said that with such confidence.
Baseball or jazz, they're very similar.
They're very American. And but yeah, so I don't know if it was a nickname or not, but the name just made me laugh. And also, people keep saying that, but I'm like, actually, that's not a bad name.
People look in 10 years' time, all the new kids are going to be called it.
I don't see why not. They're called Edward and Jacob these days.
Oh gosh.
So, yeah.
So if the book was the other way around, which I guess you could argue already exists, do you think Mikey would feature at all? Or how would he feature at all?
No, I think he'd be... I've had a lot of people bring up the Zeppo episode of Buffy, where Xander has his own side adventure while the rest of Buffy are saving the world in the background. But Xander was already part of the gang. Xander was already, there were issues there. But Mikey isn't even Xander. Mikey is the kid at the back of the class whose name we never even learn. And that's why I feel so tender about him, because his story is just as important. And Henna's story is just as important. And Mel's story is just as important. They matter just as much, and the decisions they make are just as brave. So probably not, but I get to write it, so I get to choose, and I get to tell you the story of Mikey and Mel and Henna and Jared. I get to do it, so don't try to take it from me.
Discrimination would argue no. They would argue that the influence of a person's gender does not stop at a name or a cover, that it permeates the very writing itself.